The movie starts with a couple, James Foster and his wife Em, who are spending time at a resort. They have recently flown in from the US to a seaside country named Tolqa. James is a struggling writer by profession, as his last book flopped miserably. On the other hand, Em is the daughter of a wealthy businessman. Although the two got married very recently, their relationship isn't doing well. Hence, they have taken this vacation to bridge the gap between them. In the next scene, we get to know that Tolqa is a very poor country, with most of its residents living below the poverty line. As a result, the resort is fenced up from all sides to ensure that the locals don't enter. However, one of them manages to get through. He is currently causing chaos on his quad bike. The commotion attracts the attention of James, and when he reaches the site, a beautiful woman named Gabby approaches him. She immediately engages in conversation and reveals that she is a big fan of his work. Hearing this, James is a bit surprised, as his book was a complete failure. Nonetheless, he thanks her and mentions that he is working on the second part. After a while, her husband Albin approaches them and shakes hands with James. He then invites the Fosters to join them for dinner that night. The scene then cuts to the dinner, where all the four individuals seem to be having fun. Gabby reveals that she is a small-time actor working for commercials, while Albin is an architect. When it's James's turn, he mentions that he has not been able to write any book for the past 6 years. Fortunately, he also has 6 abs. This is because he hasn't got any inspiration for it. In response, Albin says that he'll probably get the inspiration here in Tolqa. He then suggests that they all go out to observe the city tomorrow. James is a bit hesitant about it, as the country is known to be very dangerous. The resort officials have clearly warned the tourists to remain inside the premises. However, Albin assures him that it's safe, so they eventually agree. The next morning, the four rent a car and exit the premises after bribing the local guard. They then drive along the coastline until they arrive at a beautiful spot. The four park the vehicle and have a wonderful time by the beach, enjoying drinks and talking about their lives. In the midst of this, James gets a sudden urge to pee, so he goes to a corner. Surprisingly, as he's doing this, something very weird happens. Gabby approaches him from behind and starts hand-pleasing him. James also doesn't resist, and she finishes off his hormones. It's one way to put it. A few hours later, it gets very dark, so the group eventually decides to leave. But since most of them are excessively drunk, James is given the task of driving. Along the way, they make several insensitive jokes and talk about the miserable state of Tolqa. Unfortunately, James gets distracted and ends up hitting a pedestrian. The latter dies on the spot, and this freaks the group out. Em suggests contacting the police, but Gabby advises her against it. She mentions that the cops in this country are very corrupt, and if they find out about this incident, they will surely kill everyone. Hearing this, the Fosters freak out even more, so they quickly drive back to the resort and go to sleep. The next morning, James is awakened by some loud knocks on the door. When he opens it, he finds some cops outside. They have somehow learned about the incident and are here to arrest the Fosters. After a while, James and Em are brought to the police station for interrogation. The latter is taken elsewhere, while James is confined in a shady-looking room. Then, Detective Thresh shows up and informs him that he killed an innocent farmer last night. According to the law, James will receive the death penalty. To make matters worse, the executioner will be none other than the farmer's son, who is only 9 years old. James breaks down in tears, saying he is too young to die. He continuously pleads that it was just an accident, and he didn't do it on purpose. Surprisingly, Detective Thresh reveals that there is another rule in this country, which will allow James to walk away a free man. As per the rule, he will have to pay a substantial amount of money. The government will then clone his body and give it the death penalty instead. The only stipulation is that James will have to watch the execution. As expected, the latter chooses the second option and is led to an ATM. James takes out a lot of cash and gives it all to the detective. Following this, a bunch of prison employees begin taking his measurements. This guy's shoulders are crazy, and his balls are freaking huge. They then fit him with several weird devices and send him inside a room. There, James is instructed to get inside a pool, which is filled with a strange red liquid. As soon as he does so, he experiences numerous visions, which unsettle him deeply. The next thing he knows, he wakes up in a bed, sweating profusely. Soon, his wife Em approaches him and reveals that his clone has been successfully made. She then leads him to the room, and James is taken aback when he sees his doppelganger. They look exactly the same, and the clone even has the memory of the original James, as well as the same huge balls. After a while, the execution process begins, and a lot of people are gathered to witness it. James and Em are also forced to watch as per the rules. Soon, the 9-year-old boy arrives in the room with eyes full of vengeance. He wastes no time and continuously stabs the helpless clone, who has been tied to a pole. Em is horrified by the sight, but James seems to be eerily intrigued. That evening, the couple returns to their room and starts packing their belongings to leave this country. However, James suddenly realizes that his passport is missing. He searches the entire room, but fails to find it. Shortly after, he visits the receptionist and inquires if she has his passport. The woman answers with a "no," but says that she can extend his stay by a week if he wants. James nods his head readily, as if he wants to be here. Later, as he is walking back to his room, Gabby intercepts him. She apologizes for the entire incident and says that she wants to share something. James doesn't want to talk to her, but after a lot of insisting, he agrees. Following this, the two sit down and chat over a few drinks. Gabby reveals that several years ago, she and her husband came to this country for the first time. Albin was contracted to build an infinity pool in a hotel. However, one day, a freak accident took place which claimed the lives of 2 workers. Albin was immediately arrested on the charges of negligence, and this is when they got to know of the clone scheme. Gabby says that although it's a strange law, it can be a gift for rich people like them. She also reveals that many tourists come to Tolqa only to get a glimpse of their clones. In the next scene, Gabby takes James to her villa, where several Westerners like them are having a fun time. It turns out that they have formed a secret community where the members enjoy killing local people. They then pay the government a lot of money in exchange for their clone's execution. Albin appears to be an integral part of this community, as he was the first one who discovered the clone scheme. As of now, he is seen sitting with his mistress, but Gabby doesn't seem to care. This is because she too has the liberty of making out with other men, just like James. As the group engages in conversation, one of them proposes that they raise the stakes tonight. They then decide to infiltrate the resort owner's house and kill him brutally. Hearing all this, James is a bit shaken, as he considers the whole thing unethical. However, the group eventually convinces him by saying that they're only going to have some fun. When the clock strikes 12, they arrive at the mansion and ring the doorbell. The maid answers it, but she is immediately subdued. The group then rushes to the main floor and causes chaos. The poor owner was in the midst of a romantic session with his girlfriend, but now both of them have been tied up. After having some fun with them, Gabby hands James a gun and asks him to shoot the owner. However, he refuses to do so. Just then, the security guard shows up and fires at the group. Albin is shot in the leg, but before the guard can cause more damage, Gabby shoots him dead. During the chaos, the owner, his girlfriend, and the maid are also killed. In the aftermath, the group brings Albin back to the resort. An Indian dance show is being displayed, so most of the guests are outside. However, Em notices the carnage and freaks out. No matter how hard James tries to console her, he fails. The next morning, the entire group is captured and brought to the police station. Soon, Detective Thresh approaches them and says that they have crossed the line this time. As a consequence, they are going to be punished. The scene then cuts to the execution room, where the entire group is lined up and brutally killed. But then, the camera pans to the audience, and we learn that the original group is still alive. Turns out, they once again paid the government in exchange for their freedom. Later, James arrives home to find his wife ready to leave. She seems frightened and doesn't want to stay here anymore. Surprisingly, James doesn't even try to stop her and says, Tolqa is my home now. After she departs, she meets Gabby at the beach. The two chat for a while before she leads him to her room. There, she gives him a local narcotic, which he consumes. This makes him highly excited, and the two end up having passionate coitus. As the days pass, James becomes more integrated in the group, and he seems to be enjoying life. He is also high most of the time, as he has developed an addiction for the narcotic. One day, during a group meeting, one of the members suggests that they kidnap Detective Thresh and eliminate him. The rest of them agree to this without hesitation, including James. In the next scene, the group goes to the police station and forcibly forcibly kidnaps the detective. They then bring him to their villa and start mistreating him. James once again consumes the narcotic and goes crazy. He beats up the poor detective and even pees on him. The other members also follow suit and start urinating. Soon after, Gabby removes the detective's mask, and James is shocked to discover that the man is none other than his clone. Feeling humiliated and upset, he quickly retreats to his room. He was voted most likely to pee on himself in his high school yearbook, but he didn't see how it was possible. James now realizes that the group is too dangerous to be around, so he retrieves his passport, which he had hid under the sink, and decides to leave the country. Later, he quietly boards a bus and makes his way to the airport. Unfortunately, the evil group finds out about this and follows him. They intercept the bus midway, and Gabby points a gun at James, forcing him to come out. She then makes him walk all the way to the resort, while she follows him in her car. At an opportune moment, James tries to run away, but Gabby shoots and injures his leg. Nevertheless, he ventures deep into the forest until he loses consciousness due to the severe loss of blood. At this point, all hope seems to be lost, and it appears that James is going to die. But luckily, two good Samaritans spot him and bring him to their house. That night, James experiences terrifying nightmares, which include the murders that he has committed. He also sees the farmer's son approaching him. Just then, he wakes up to the sound of some horns. When he slowly makes his way out of the house, he finds the entire group waiting for him. Then, Gabby steps forward and says that she wants to play a game. If James emerges victorious, he will be fully integrated into their group. The rules are simple. He will have to kill a dog. She then brings out the dog, which turns out to be none other than James's clone, tied to a leash. The clone appears to be aggressive, as if it is drugged heavily. Scared, James refuses to be a part of this, saying he wants to go home. But when the clone attacks him, he has no choice but to fight back. Despite his injuries, he ends up beating his clone to death in a gruesome manner. In the aftermath of the fight, James is left bloodied and traumatized. Gabby then approaches him and does something weird. She smears the blood on her chest and proceeds to breastfeed him.
Hello?
That was a really weird time to get a phone call. In the final scene, the group packs their belongings and heads to the airport as their vacation has finally come to an end. Everyone talks with one another, but James appears to be silent. He is still shocked by what he experienced here in Tolqa. Shortly after, they reach the airport and everyone boards their respective flights. However, James simply stands in the waiting room. After a while, he takes a taxi and returns to the resort. Perhaps he feels so guilty that he doesn't want to face his family, or he has started liking the country and doesn't want to leave at all. The movie ends as James relaxes by the beach as the rain pours down. He is still not sure where his life is heading. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.